Today on ZZZ Made Easy, we're slithering around with Cissia. This video will cover the basics of Cissia's main mechanics, how you can build her, and some teams you can go into. At the end, we'll cover some extra tips. This video is made in collaboration with Hoyoverse and uses footage from the creator beta server. Sound effects are not enabled and things are subject to change. Thank you Hoyoverse for this opportunity. Cissia is an S-rank electric attack agent and the first from the Metropolitan or the Division. This is part of the public security faction, so Cissia could technically activate the additional abilities of Jane or Do You Win. However, like her in-game title, Cissia is a little bit of a specialist. She can give crit damage and the ever-valuable defense shred to her teammates, but the defense shred portion only affects electric damage. To deal damage herself, Cissia has off-field and burst-centric methods. She would typically swap in for a quick combo then run away, retreat quickly by bringing an ally in with quick assist. Cissia is a bit similar to Orphe as a sub-DPS who doesn't need a lot of field time. While Orphe specializes for aftershock, Cissia specializes for electric damage. Let's start with Cissia's core passive. Upon entering battle, Cissia gains 3 Venom, which is her unique resource underneath her portrait. Every 5 seconds, Cissia will consume 1 Venom stack to trigger Corrode Bone onto nearby enemies. This is an entirely passive damage tick and can trigger while Cissia is off field. You don't have to hit anything or apply a mark. When Cissia gains more than 6 Venom, every excess stack will trigger Corrode Bone once. It's a little tough to see because she doesn't do an off-field attack like Orphe, but Corrode Bone is going to trigger multiple times when you overflow on stacks. This is important to know because essentially you can't waste Venom / Corrode Bone. Any extras would just trigger the damage automatically. Corrode Bone will be Cissia's main damage source, and naturally it has a couple mechanics tied to it. First, each Corrode Bone trigger will increase Cissia's crit rate by 6% for 15 seconds. This can stack 3 times. Generally, Cissia wants to apply Corrode Bone during the entire fight, or at least every 15 seconds. This will give her a near-permanent 18% crit rate buff. Back to the core passive, when Cissia has Venom, the entire squad's electric damage will ignore 6% of the enemy's defense. If Cissia's initial energy regen is higher than 1.4, then for every 0.12 points above that threshold, ignore another 1% defense. This has a max of 25% defense shred if Cissia can get to 3.68 energy regen. We'll talk about how to hit this point later, but essentially Cissia will build energy regen to get more defense shred. Unfortunately, this defense shred only applies to electric damage. On a positive note, this buff lingers for 30 seconds after Cissia runs out of Venom stacks. You basically have to be doing nothing for this to not be active. For a couple more core passive effects, Corrode Bone deals additional electric damage equal to 335% attack. It also gets a 40% daze increase, but if you have a second electric agent on the team, this becomes 60% instead. Corrode Bone is listed under Cissia's basic attacks, so you're going to want to level that skill up. At level 12 with the core passives bonus, Corrode Bone will have a 590% damage multiplier. It's a solid chunk of damage, and that stacks up quickly. For Cissia's additional ability, she needs a stun agent or an electric agent ally. With Venom stacks, Cissia's team will get a 40% crit damage buff. Cissia herself gets an extra 10%, so 50% total. Just like the defense shred for electric damage, this crit damage buff lingers for 30 seconds after you run out of Venom. Unfortunately, the additional ability requires an electric ally, which further limits Cissia's team options. If you wanted to use a team without an electric DPS partner, then now you're pushed into having a stunner. To further complicate things, the only electric support is Rena, who is a pen ratio buffer. Generally, it's not advised to mix pen ratio plus defense shredding effects. If you lower the enemy's defense, then you get less value out of your % defense penetration from Rena. It's not the end of the world, but you're probably better off with any kind of attack buffer instead. That brings us to Seed, electric attacker who wants a second attack ally. Seed buffs her Vanguard with 1000 attack, 25% damage, and 30% crit damage. Cissia adds more crit damage and defense shred. The third ally in this team can be anyone. While Seed is open to partnering with pretty much any attack agent, Cissia is a bit more specialized for electric crit DPSs. I wanted to bring up this specific pair up early because we're going to talk about Seed more throughout this video. We've covered what Cissia does with her Venom stacks, now let's talk about how to get more. Cissia has a 4-part basic attack string. During the 4th basic, Cissia will get 2 Venom. Against stunned enemies, she will get 1 extra Venom as a bonus. Cissia's EOC special has a few quirks. Tapping the special button with 65 energy will do a flurry of stabs followed by a thrust through the enemy. Cissia will gain 3 Venom and activate a quick assist forward. However, do not take this quick assist immediately. Instead, after the EX special thrust, press basic attack to shortcut into Cissia's 4th basic attack. Doing this will grant 3 Venom from the EX special and 2 Venom from the 4th basic. You can take the quick assist after, but you really want to do this extra 4th basic. We can call this Cissia's Venom combo because it's going to be her main combo for her quick swap playstyle. Cissia actually has the option to hold EX Special to consume 20 more energy at a time to do 1 extra stab and gain 1 more Venom. You can consume up to 60 additional energy max. Basically, if you consume 80, 100, or 120 energy, Cissia can gain 4, 5, or 6 Venom total just from the EX Special. Even if you use this option, you're still going to want to follow up with the 4th basic. There's no harm in overstacking. Now, if you were paying attention earlier, Cissia's EX Special costs 65 energy to cast. If I consume 60 additional energy, that's 125 total. Agents only have 120 energy max, so how is this possible? That's because Cissia refunds 5 energy when casting her EX Special. As far as I can tell, Cissia has this weird 5 energy refund so that she synergizes with Seed and her own signature dub engine slightly better. Let's continue on. Cissia's chain attack grants 3 Venom and triggers a quick assist if she is the last in the sequence. Cissia's ultimate also grants 3 Venom and triggers a quick assist. In addition, Cissia will activate Aetherveil Cold-Blooded for 30 seconds. This is a new Aetherveil type that grants the team a 5% crit damage buff. If Cissia happens to use ult twice before the 30 seconds are up, she would disable the first Aetherveil Cold-Blooded before reactivating it again. Besides another 5% crit damage for team buffing, Cissia's kit does not benefit from triggering Aetherveils. The main agent who would want an Aetherveil trigger specifically would be Ye Shengguang. Xiaogong won't get Cissia's defense shred though, and to get her crit damage buff, you can no longer run Suna or Zhao as your 3rd ally. You could run Rina, but is that worth doing instead of just giving Xiaogong her own double buffers? Moving on, Cissia has another way to trigger Corrode Bone. For every 6 Venom gains, Cissia gets 1 stack of Serpentine Shadow. This has its own icon, and Cissia can have 3 stacks max. For the cost of 1 Serpentine Shadow, Cissia can hold basic attack to do Serpent's Kiss. This move will consume all Venom stacks to trigger the same number of Corrode Bone ticks. It also triggers a quick assist. Serpent's Kiss is basically Cissia's burst damage move. If you need to get all your Corrode Bone damage within a short time period, like during a stun phase, then that's exactly what Serpent's Kiss is for. Let's do a review of Cissia's main moves and mechanics. Cissia provides electric damage, defense shred, and general crit damage buffs for your team. To keep these buffs active, Cissia will need Venom. She can generate Venom with her 4th basic attack, EX Special, Chain Attack, and Ultimate. Every 5 seconds, 1 Venom will be used to trigger Corrode Bone onto enemies. This damage can occur while off-field, and 3 ticks will give Cissia 18% crit rate. Unlike other stacking mechanics, Cissia is totally fine if you overcap on Venom. Any excess stacks trigger Corrode Bone ticks on the spot. If you want to trigger all your remaining Corrode Bone ticks manually, you can use the hold basic Serpent's Kiss. This allows Cissia to switch from passive off-field DPS to a more burst DPS tactic. To fit with her quick swap playstyle, Cissia will have quick assist triggers on her main moves. This lets you continue the action with, say, a 2nd DPS agent. Next, let's go over some general gameplay tips. If she's on field, Cissia ideally wants to do her 4th basic as much as possible to build Venom stacks. If you can make it to Cissia's 3rd basic, she does have iframes, plus the 4th basic has its own iframes too. While chaining in between 3rd and 4th basic, you can still take damage, but Cissia seems to have higher interruption resistance. Cissia has a small quality of life shortcut for other moves. If Cissia swaps in via quick assist herself, she would do a drill attack followed by a ground sweep. Before the ground sweep portion, you can chain into Cissia's regular special, the EX Special, or Serpent's Kiss with their respective inputs. This lets Cissia fit more actions into a shorter time frame. A basic example would be quick assisting in after Nicole's EX Special, then doing the Venom combo plus Serpent's Kiss. You can see Cissia can just fit this combo in during Nicole's shorter debuff timings. As usual, Cissia's dodge counter has the same animation as the quick assist, however you cannot skip the ground sweep portion before chaining into those other moves. For some general advice, try not to sit on max Serpentine Shadow stacks. For the most part, you can use Serpent's Kiss after every Venom combo. The move does okay damage itself. While you can use the hold EX Special to get extra Venom, typically I would mainly use the regular tap version. The reason being, the Venom combo grants 5 Venom for 60 energy. If I held the EX Special for the max 120 energy total, then did the 4th basic, I would only get 8 Venom. While it would take less time, I could instead do 2 separate Venom combos for 120 energy and I would get 10 Venom total. Also, I'm not going to have max 120 energy all the time anyway. Something to take note of is that Cissia's 4th basic and Serpent's Kiss grant a decent amount of energy. Even if you're not at max energy, as long as you're somewhat close, you still might be able to do 2 Venom combos thanks to the energy gained back. Now, are there times where you shouldn't use Serpent's Kiss? Yes, 2 general reasons. 1. Cissia's 18% crit rate buff needs Venom to trigger Corrode Bone every 15 seconds. If you don't gain any Venom in that time frame, Cissia has to restack the crit buff. Reason number 2, if you're close to a stun phase, you can stack up on Venom, then use your stockpile with that stun damage multiplier. With that in mind, one of the subtler parts of Cissia's kit is that Corrode Bone adds a decent amount of daze buildup. It gets a 40 or 60% daze increase from the core passive, and Cissia triggers it a lot throughout the fight, so the daze adds up. Just like how you use Serpent's Kiss to trigger your remaining Corrode Bone damage in a shorter time frame, you can also use it to build a lot of daze. If you really need to push a stun, you can sacrifice some damage for faster daze right now. That leads nicely into what Cissia can do during the stun phase. Actually, before we start chain attacking, you may want to play Cissia with manual chain attacks. With manual chain attacks, if you hold special or basic attack during the thrust animation of the EX special, Cissia will skip the heavy attack trigger. You can then do the 4th basic to get extra Venom. You can also use this method to do Serpent's Kiss. If you take the quick assist after, you can even have Cissia be the first chain attacker, you just gotta wait for her to land first. During stun phases, the Venom combo plus Serpent's Kiss is a guaranteed setup because when the 4th basic lands on stunned foes, Cissia gains 3 Venom instead of 2. 6 Venom gives us 1 Serpentine Shadow to use Serpent's Kiss right after, just one of the reasons I brought up manual chain attacks. Continuing, since overstacking Venom triggers Corrode Bone automatically, we just want to gain as much Venom as possible during a stun. As a basic example, Cissia can use chain attack, then ult, and then do a Venom combo plus Serpent's Kiss. That's 12 Venom that will all get used up as long as Serpent's Kiss happens before the stun is over. If you're playing Cissia as a lone DPS, you can do a double chain attack sequence. Start the stun with an ally, send Cissia in the first time, then cancel the second chain attack prompt. Cissia will trigger a quick assist, so when you swap, your next ally can trigger the next prompt immediately. Send Cissia in a second time. After this, you're free to use ultimate, Venom combos, and Serpent's Kiss. If the boss isn't stunned for that long, I thought doing 1 chain attack plus ult plus 2 Venom combos worked fine. Doing multiple Serpent's Kisses can be better than double chain attacks. If you want to optimize damage and you don't mind Cissia doing only 1 chain attack, then you can try to open the chain attacks with ultimate. This activates Aetherville Cold-Blooded for another 5% crit damage. Is this necessary? It is more damage, but it's a tiny part of Cissia's team buffs. If you get more agents like Xiaoguang, or there's a stage modifier that requires an Aetherville, then it's a consideration. To end the main guide section, let's talk about Cissia's synergy with Seed. Cissia and Seed provide a ton of buffs between them, and when Seed is actively dealing damage, she gives 2 energy per second to Cissia. When Cissia spends energy, half her amount gets converted into Steel Charge for Seed. Cissia's weird 65 energy EX special will grant 2.5 Steel Charge more than your average 60 energy special. Letting Seed enter with quick assist will also give decent Steel Charge indirectly. Now, the main reason Cissia better synergizes with Seed than, say, Orphe for example, is that the Vanguard buffs and Steel Charge conversion only affect the active agent. Orphe loves the extra energy from Seed, but since she attacks from off field, she doesn't get the Vanguard buffs. Cissia solves most of these issues by needing to swap on field to use her EX special. If you let Corrode Bone tick away passively, then those won't get buffed by Seed. However, when you use Serpent's Kiss, Cissia stays around long enough to keep the Vanguard buffs active. I can't cover everything about this duo, but here are a few things to be aware of. With the typical energy region build and Seed's bonus Vanguard energy, Cissia can do EX special extremely often. Add in the energy from the 4th basic and Serpent's Kiss moves, and it's like we're playing a silly event mode. To chain multiple downfalls for Seed, try to start with a full 150 Steel Charge. 1 Venom combo plus Seed's ultimate can get Seed back to 120 for the next downfall. If you want to start a stun phase with downfall, you can swap to Cissia and use her full max energy hold EX special. Chain attack with Seed, then Cissia. Cissia can use Serpent's Kiss, then quick assist into Seed. She will have enough Steel Charge to do downfall again. What if you do not have full energy? In that scenario, you can try to have about 75% energy on Cissia. Do 1 Venom combo, but this time include the 4th basic plus Serpent's Kiss. After Cissia comes back with her chain attack, hopefully you recovered enough energy for a second Venom combo after. Quick assist to Seed for downfall. This method doesn't use Seed's ultimate, and it takes longer, but it's just one example. There are so many ways to go about setting up stun phases with this duo. When you add in a 3rd ally like Dylan, Astra, or Nicole, things get even more crazy. If you enjoy playing Seed, I would highly recommend pairing her with Cissia. This is a very fun team with so many different ways to play, especially during the stun phase. Onto the build section, Cissia gets 18% crit rate from Corrode Bone and 50% crit damage from her addition ability. these only apply in combat, so take that into account when you look at your stats page before battle. If you want to max out Cissia's electric damage defense shred, you must build 3.68 initial energy regen. With the core passive maxed out, Cissia can use a 60% ER Petition 6 disc and a 20% ER 2-piece disc set. This gets her to 2.8 energy regen, which gives us about 17% defense shred. If you add an A rank energy regen W engine, you can bump this up to 3.58 ER. This gets us 24% out of 25% defense shred. Cissia's 60% ER signature will get her over that final hump, but you almost get the full defense shred buff with just A rank options. Cissia's signature is Serpentine Seeker. It has a 60% ER main stat and grants 25% crit rate in battle. For every 20 energy consumed, you get 3 seconds of a buff that grants 20% electric defense shred. This can stack up to 30 seconds max, you get 10 seconds at start of combat, and the duration does not decrease when off field. Every tap EX special done by Cissia will grant 9 seconds of 20% defense shred. Please keep in mind that this defense shred is for Cissia only, but you should easily have the buff the entire fight. For other S-rank W engines, Cissia could use Orpheus Bellicose Blaze since it has an ER main stat and 20% crit rate. Seed's Cordish Germinate doesn't have energy regen, but it's actually very usable. 39% crit rate and 25% electric damage for 40 seconds if you use the Venom combo. This will also give 20% defense shred on basic attacks and ultimate. Cissia will lose some defense shred potential without an ER main set W engine, but she can try to make it up with her own personal damage. For A rank, Cissia has a nice surprise. Anton's Drill Rig has an ER main stat, and when using EX specials or chain attack, basic attacks get 50% damage for 10 seconds. This has a 15-second cooldown or a 5-second downtime. Due to the timing of when you actually get Venom from the EX special, Drill Rig will only buff 2 Corrode Bone triggers. Well, good thing Cissia has a way to consume all her Corrode Bones in a shorter time frame, huh? Now, if you don't have spare Drill Rigs, you could use a non-attack W engine with energy regen. However, if you're playing Cissia with Seed or just on fielding her, then I think you can get away with Mercado Desire / Cannon Rotor for crit stats, or just good old Starlit Engine for pure attack. For Drive Disc main stats, Cissia can use crit damage or crit rate in Petition 4, electric damage Petition 5, and energy regen Petition 6. If you have a lot of crit damage or percent damage sources, you can also swap in percent attack. As talked about earlier, pen ratio is less effective the more defense shred you have. I would not suggest going for pen ratio, but flat pen substats are fine. Flat defense penetration is applied after the percent defense shred. To max out the defense shred buff, Cissia will need to run 2-piece Swing Jazz or 2-piece Moonlight Lullaby. Her 4-piece set can be Dawn's Bloom, which the Venom combo will activate. Since Cissia's kit doesn't have big percent damage bonuses, the 55% damage for basic attacks, aka Corrode Bone, will work nicely here. If you use Drill Rig plus Dawn's Bloom, that's a lot of percent damage bonuses, so that is a case where maybe you could use percent attack. For other 4-piece sets, Cissia can hold Astral Voice. She has many quick assists to stack up the buff for an ally, but if you want Cissia to get the 24% damage boost, you need to quick assist into her as well. If you don't want to run either of those sets, Thunder Metal is an option, but Dawn's Bloom is one of the better disc sets to farm. It's paired with Moonlight Lullaby, which is the universal support set, so it's a very efficient stage. For teams, Cissia is another potential addition to the double attack team comps. If you use a non-electric agent, you'll want a stunner for Cissia's additional ability. If you do have an electric attacker, then you can use any buffing support. One of those options is Nicole, 65% defense shred with Cissia on the team, and if you have Cissia's signature or another defense shredding ability from your third ally, you can easily get close to 80, 90 plus defense shred. As for solo DPS teams, as long as you grab a stunner or electric support, your third ally can be anyone. Cissia appears to be Seed's best partner, as we've been going over. These two have a variety of rotation options, and their third ally can be a stunner or a support. It's a ton of swapping, but Nicole can be very effective with these two. Cissia and Seed have defense shred on their signatures, plus Seed's Mindscape 2 adds another 20% defense shred for the Vanguard. If you do have all of that, I believe you can hit 100% defense shred with Nicole. I guess you won't have to wait for a future Electric Rupture agent. Nicole requires a lot of micromanaging, so if you're not into that, you can use Trigger. She's fine as is, but her defense shred is unfortunately locked behind her signature. Any team attack buffer will work. Lucy's our A rank option, and Suna can offer bonus stun damage plus a little extra daze. Astra's great because more chain attacks means more Venom, plus it allows Seed to quick assist back into Cissia. To help fit all their damage into the stun phase, Dialing Stun Extension is very helpful, not to mention her free extra ultimate. Besides Seed, Cissia ideally wants another electric attacker. Soldier Zero Ambi generally wants Orphe for her full Aftershock team, but Cissia can work. If you go at Haunted Masa, you definitely want a stunner. Trigger or Dial-In work nicely. For a funny team, Cissia can take Nicole's spot in the Anton plus Astra team. We'll use Astra to manually trigger Anton's decently high damage quick assist. Cissia having her own quick assist actually works out well for this team. Besides the electric attackers, technically Cissia can give her defense shred to Yanagi and Grace. It's not the greatest, but you could play Cissia with Yanagi and Yuzuha for like a Thunder Metal team. You're free to mix and match a lot of the agents here, but for Cissia's solo DPS carry teams, it's tough to beat Dowling plus Astra. Extra ultimate and extra chain attacks means more Corrode Bone triggers. For another electric stunner, Chingy can stay on field to get the stun, but her stun damage buff only works during said stun phase. If you're a completely brand new player, you could use the A rank stun Ambi plus Nicole or Lucy. That's about as basic as it gets. In terms of other double DPS teams, Cissia can pair with anyone who likes her crit damage buffs. It just comes down to matching additional abilities. I was thinking of trying to use Xiaoguang with Cissia since she has an Ether Veil, but you would be locked into using Rina, which is kinda not ideal. For the future, if we get an attack buffing electric support, that should open up more team options. Let's go over Cissia's Mindscapes next. For M1, she now starts battle with a full 6 Venom. The core passive's defense shred effect increases by 140%, which would be 35% defense shred for electric damage. M1 also gives the team 5% electric resistance shred, and Corrode Bone gets its own extra 10%. M1 is a nice team damage buff, almost turns Cissia into a boss Nicole, at least for electric agents. For M2, when Chain Attacker Ultimate hits a stunned foe, they generate 3 additional Venom. Serpent's Kiss gets a 35% damage buff. M2 is a personal damage increase, especially during stuns. After Chain Attacker Ult, you can always cast Serpent's Kiss thanks to the extra Venom. For M4, when using an EX Special, Chain Attacker Ultimate, Cissia gains 1 stack of Decidedness, stacking up to 3 times. When you use Serpent's Kiss, she will consume all Decidedness. Each stack will trigger 1 special Corrode Bone that does not consume Venom, but it also does not deal daze. M4 is another personal damage increase. I don't think you can overstack Decidedness, so after 3 of those moves, you do want to use Serpent's Kiss to use it up. For Mindscape 6, every time Corrode Bone is triggered, Cissia gains 1 Bone Deep Corrosion stack. When attacks other than Corrode Bone hit an enemy, she consumes 1 stack to trigger 1 special Corrode Bone. Like Mindscape 4, the special Corrode Bone doesn't deal daze. You can also only consume 1 Bone Deep Corrosion every 3 seconds. M6 essentially doubles Cissia's Corrode Bone damage. You just can't consume it all at once like with Serpent's Kiss, but it's just free extra damage throughout the fight. If you want to invest in Cissia, her signature grants 20% defense shred, but only for herself. M1 grants 10% extra defense shred for all electric allies, plus a little bonus electric resistance shred. Besides M1, all of Cissia's other Mindscapes are personal damage increases. She will get many more Corrode Bone triggers, although these special ones do not deal extra daze. For the after party tip section, I will cover Cissia's other moves and some extra info. Cissia's regular special attack is a single stab. This can be shortcut into from the quick assist, but that's not really super useful. Cissia's dash attack is a slash that changes into her second basic. It doesn't actually lunge all the way to the enemy, just in their direction. Cissia has the regular defensive assist plus follow-up. It also changes into the second basic attack after. It's good to know that quick assist takes priority over perfect assist. If Cissia is doing her Venom combo but you want to trigger a perfect assist, you can tap swap 2 times. You still get the quick assist off with your second ally, but then you're immediately triggering perfect assist with the third one. Cissia doesn't have the greatest grouping, but her every effect is pretty good. When Corrode Bone triggers, it just hits all enemies from a very far range. In modes like Shield Defense, you can focus on the elite enemy and Corrode Bone will take out the mobs. For a little more AoE control, when you hold basic attack for Serpent's Kiss, if you use your movement input, you can stay in the air and direct where Cissia lands. Do note, it costs 1 Serpentine Shadow to fly into the air, but if you whiff the actual dive attack, then Cissia does not consume all her Venom. Try not to miss. At her core, Cissia is a fairly simple agent. You can't really mess up her main damage source, and you don't really need to worry about managing her buffs because they linger for so long. Despite having a pretty simple kit, being able to save Venom or use all of it at once makes for some interesting gameplay choices. Having quick assist on nearly every move means getting in and out is very smooth, and Cissia helps contribute good daze butt up to get to those stun phases. In general, Cissia can be played alone, but it's clear that she's intended to be a specialist vanguard pick for Seed. If you don't have Seed, the crit damage buff works for anyone, but the defense shred is for electric agents only. Case Specialist is a very fitting title for Cissia. That's all I have for this video. Have fun with Cissia and be sure to bring snacks to your polling parties. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.